If your faith feels heavy lately, not distant, not rebellious, just heavy, this might sound familiar to you. You know what you should be doing. You care deeply about your relationship with God. You want your faith to be steady and meaningful and real, but staying consistent feels really harder than it should. Not because you don't try, but because every attempt, it just seems to come with pressure. The pressure to keep up, the pressure to be consistent, the pressure to do it all right. And instead of peace, your faith feels tense. Instead of connection, it feels just like another responsibility that you're failing to manage. Here's what I want to name right away. And I need you to hear this very clearly. Your faith feels heavy. If it feels heavy, it's not because you're spiritually weak. And it's not because you lack any discipline. And it's not because you don't love God. It's because pressure has quietly replaced alignment. So in this video, I want to help you see why that happens and what actually works instead. So what we're going to talk about. First, we're going to talk about where spiritual pressure really comes from and why most women never even question it. Then we're going to talk about why guilt always shows up after that pressure, not before it. And then we're going to talk about why pressure-based faith eventually just collapses no matter how committed that you are. And then we'll finally look at what it's like to grow spiritually in a way that fits your real life, not some ideal one that you want to have, but your real life. My goal isn't to convince you to try harder. It's to help you understand why and what has been breaking your faith, so that you can finally experience a steadier, more grounded way forward. Hey there, wise woman. This is Deneen TB, your faith growth and alignment strategist, helping driven Christian women, professionals, and business owners design a faith growth rhythms and practices that actually fit their lives without the pressure of doing more. No pressure. So they can lead with purpose, live out their mission, and create lasting influence for God in their work and in their life. So let's get started with the pressure that most women never question. Because the reality is, most Christian women don't walk away from their faith. They walk away from a pressure-driven faith without realizing how it formed in the first place. Because from the very beginning, especially if you've been in church for a really long time, many of us were taught, or at least shown, that spiritual growth works in a certain way. We've learned what growth looks like. I know you know these. It's that daily quiet time that's never missed. It's the reading plans that move straight through scripture every year. It's the disciplines that are measured by your consistency. It's the faithfulness that can be tracked and counted, completed. We watched people we admire model faith as something that's orderly and predictable and uninterrupted by real life. So without anyone saying anything out loud, we just absorbed this message. The message is, this is what mature faith looks like. Over time, that understanding, well, what happens is it quietly turns into pressure. Pressure that sounds like this, and maybe you've said a few of these things to yourself, that you should be further along by now. If this really mattered, you'd make time for it. Other women manage this. Why can't you? Consistency equals faithfulness. And because these messages are often so wrapped up in really good intentions, they're wrapped up in scripture and really sincere devotion, we rarely question them. We just assume that the problem has to be us, right? So when our life gets full, when our work demands increase, leadership responsibilities are expanded, family needs shift, health or mental load enters the picture, faith practices that once felt truly meaningful begin to feel like just another expectation that we just can't keep up with. Not because God has changed, He's always there. And not because that you stopped caring about it, but because the structure that you were handed was never designed to really flex with your real life. It was designed for ideal conditions, not seasons and transitions and the complexities of life. That's when faith starts to feel heavy. Not because you're failing spiritually, but because pressure has replaced alignment. And pressure, well, it always weighs more than it's meant to carry. So why does guilt always follow pressure? That's where many women misunderstand what's actually happening. Guilt doesn't start the problem. Pressure does. When faith is built around those unspoken expectations, consistency without context, discipline without design, growth without regard for your season, and pressure becomes the standard. And pressure always assumes that you should be able to keep up and that it assumes your life should accommodate the structure, and that assumes that faithfulness looks the same in every single season of your life. So when your capacity changes, when your work intensifies, your leadership grows, your health shifts, your emotional bandwidth shrinks, something has to give. That's when the guilt shows up. Not because you're disappointing God, no, but because you can't maintain a system that was really never built for your real life. Guilt is not a verdict. It's actually a signal. It's a signal that the way that you've been trying to grow spiritually is totally misaligned with how you're actually designed to live right now. And because most women are really sincere and deeply committed, the response makes sense. You restart the habit again. You add another discipline. You promise to try harder the next time. But guilt does not create growth. It creates cycles. Cycles of effort and exhaustion and quiet discouragement where faith never fully settles because it's always under review. It's always looking through it through the microscope. And no relationship can thrive under constant pressure, constant scrutiny. Pressure-based faith can create effort for a while. It can motivate with short bursts of discipline and moments of intensity, but it cannot sustain spiritual formation because pressure builds checklists instead of connection. It builds comparison instead of clarity. It builds anxiety instead of assurance. It builds performative consistency instead of rooted growth. It doesn't build actual roots, which is why so many sincere women say, I feel so behind. I know what to do. I just can't sustain it. I feel disconnected even though I care deeply. Eventually, pressure just collapses, not because faith failed, but because life got real. And when pressure stops working, many women swing to the only other option that they've been shown, convenience. So they say, I'll get back to my faith when things slow down. I'll focus on it later. But convenience doesn't create any depth. It creates drift. So women get stuck between these two extremes, pressure, which burns them out, and convenience, which leaves them unfulfilled. Neither one leads to actual steady, grounded growth in God. And that's the moment that many women assume that something is wrong with them. And the real issue is this: they were never shown a third way. Spiritual growth was never meant to be powered by pressure or postponed by convenience. It was designed to be built through alignment. And this is part of what most Christian women were never taught. Aligned commitment is a way of growing spiritually that works with how God designed you, not against it. So it is built on design instead of comparison. That means understanding how you naturally connect with God rather than copying someone else's spiritual life. It's built on rhythms instead of rigid habits. Practices that can be flexed with your real life instead of collapsing when they get busy. It is about building commitment that fits your actual season, not some idealized version of your schedule and the capacity that you actually have. It's built on practices that integrate into your work and into your leadership rather than compete with them. Aligned commitment isn't about doing less. It's about doing what actually lasts. And when faith is aligned with how God designed you, you stop measuring your spiritual growth based on your streaks or checklists of doing well. You stop feeling behind when your life gets full. You experience consistency without pressure, and your faith, it becomes steady and not stressful. One woman described it this way: it finally feels like my faith can keep up with my life instead of fighting with it. That's the difference that alignment makes. This is exactly how I help women grow. I don't help women to try harder or to pile on more spiritual disciplines. No, I help them actually release pressure without losing the depth, to understand why guilt keeps showing up and what it's actually pointing to. I help them to build those faith rhythms that hold up under real life. And I help them to grow spiritually in a way that really feels honest, grounded, and sustainable for them. Because God didn't design your faith to exhaust you. It's supposed to energize you. He designed it to sustain you in the work that you're doing, in your leadership responsibilities, in your everyday life. So, where do we go from here? If you're noticing that your faith has been carrying more pressure than peace, nothing is wrong with you and nothing needs to be forced. What helps is clarity. Clarity around how you are designed to grow spiritually so that pressure loosens its grip on your faith so that it can become steady again. That clarity often begins with discovering your faith shape. I do have a quiz for that so you can know how you best connect to God. I'll put that down in the description so you can click on that. Because it helps you to understand your way that God has uniquely wired you to connect with Him so you can start to build those sustainable rhythms. Sometimes clarity comes best also through a conversation. So if you'd rather have a talk with me, let's talk through where you are. You're welcome to book a time with me. It's called a clarity call, and we'll explore what it's been creating the pressure for you in your faith and what alignment could really look like in this season. Again, all that's down in the description. There's no fixing, there's no forcing. We'll just have an honest conversation around clarity and help you get grounded on your next step. Before you move on, I want you to take a moment and notice what's been creating that weight, that pressure in your faith life lately. Where is that pressure showing up for you? I've got a few ways for you to tell me in the comments. Is it time? Because you're feeling like there's never enough? Is it consistency? Because you're struggling to keep up some type of habit instead of finding a rhythm? Is it comparison? You're wondering if you're doing it all right because of what you see around you. Is it just clarity, not knowing what actually does work for you? Or is it connection, caring deeply but feeling distant from God? Which one is it for you? None of them means that you're failing. None of them. It means that your faith has been carrying pressure It was never meant to hold. And when pressure is named, it can be released and replaced with something that fits. Check out the resources down in the description, and I'll see you in the next video. This is Deneen TB. Have a great rest of your day. And as always, be filled to overflowing.